Hello, I'm Dango Rose. Welcome to the Mountaineer Podcast, where everybody's listening. The Mountaineer brings you the latest news of the peak-to-peak region, in print, online, through our podcast, social media, and special publications. Now, listen in to the latest news of the area with our local journalists. Hello, I'm Dango Rose, and this is the Mountaineer Podcast, where everybody's listening.
And I'm Cynthia Davis. In this week's episode, we get a 2023 Peak to Peak studio tour wrap up with potter and sculptor Julie Neri. She will also talk about her work and share some information about what's coming up for mountain artists at the Old Gallery in Allenspark this holiday season.
We hear this week's music mentions from Jamie Lammers, and special correspondent Maryann Rosen will share the paranormal kickoff of our 5-part supernatural story series for the month of October, leading up to Samhain and Halloween.
And for our final story, Jamie Lammers interviews multi-talented indie-pop-rock-singer-songwriter Jesse Maclaine. She talks about her style and love of the craft, as well as her upcoming show at the Very Nice Brewing on Sunday, October 6th.
But first, some news from your neighborhood. Congratulations to the Mountaineers' incredible team of media pioneers who took home numerous awards at this year's Colorado Press Association Awards ceremony held in Denver. 5 members of our incredible team of journalists won 8 awards, and the newspaper took home the Sweepstakes Award for Excellence in Other Mixed Media. Now let's listen in as Cynthia announces this year's award winners.
Thank you, Dango. We'll begin with Mountaineer reporter Christopher Kelly. Christopher won 3 awards at this year's ceremony. In the category of Best Business News Feature Story, Christopher was awarded 2nd place for his article, Netherlands Restaurants Suffer Summer Staffing Shortage. In the category of Best Politics Reporting, Christopher was awarded 2nd place for his article, Rundown of Netherlands Ballot Questions. And in the category of Best Public Service Project, Christopher was awarded 1st place for his article, Contemplating the Future of the Netherlands Police Department. Reporter John McKay won 1st place in the category Best Serious Column Writing for his article, I Remember Them. And Aya Pelcom Donahue won 1st place in the category of Best Junior Journalist Story for her article, Goodrich Hired as NMSHS Principal. 2nd place was awarded to Annika Marshk in the same category for her article, Classical Conversations. And Mountaineer photojournalist Dave Gibson was awarded 1st place for Best Photography Portfolio. And finally, the Mountaineer newspaper received special recognition for excellence in other mixed media.
Do you have a spooky story that you want to share? Have you encountered ghosts of gold diggers past, a Bigfoot, or maybe a Tommyknocker? Well, we want to hear all about it. In October, the Everybody's Listening podcast will feature a string of spooky stories by special correspondent Maryann Rosen. If you have one of your own that you'd like to share, go to themountaineer.com and look for the spooky prompt.
Read more local news and feature stories in print and online at themountaineer.com.
And that's it for this week's news briefs. If you have something to share, you can send requests for submission to info@themountaineer.com. As long as it meets our community standards, we'll be sure to include it in a future episode. Brightwood Music has been serving the peak-to-peak region and beyond since opening in 2008. The full-service music store offers new and used instruments and will even repair the ones you've got. Go ahead and check them out on Facebook at Brightwood Music. Brightwood Music is the best music store with altitude across the Peak to Peak. And for our lead story, Cynthia interviews Julie Neri. She was one of the many fantastic artists participating in our first annual Peak to Peak studio tour.
Hi, Julie. Can you start by introducing yourself?
My name is Julie Neri. I am a potter in Longmont, Colorado. My work is shown at the Old Gallery, and I'm the communications co-op for the Old Gallery Artists group.
Julie, you were one of the artists participating in the Peak to Peak studio tour this past weekend. Can you tell us a little bit about how it went?
Oh my God, it was amazing. It was, I was there on Saturday morning doing an interactive demo, and we had a steady stream of customers. It was a beautiful day, a little bit of wind, but that's typical for the mountain. But it was a gorgeous fall day. We had lots of people. Everybody was in a really great mood. People excited about art. Some of the people that came through were knew about the tour. Some were just out and about, but then we told them about the tour, and they were excited to continue on and go to other sites, studios. So it was a really, really great weekend.
And would you tell people what the communications co-op role is at the gallery?
We have a group of us that are all volunteers that take on different positions in order to keep the community of artists going there. So my position is I put together newsletters, kind of coordinate information to the members. We have 27 artists who are members of the Old Gallery that sell their work there. So whatever that entails, just keep people involved and informed.
So, Julie, how long have you been showing your work at the gallery, and how long have you been a potter?
This is my third year having my work there. I started clay 30 years ago. I had finished my master's degree in business and needed something non-intellectual. And then over the years, had it as a hobby and joined a community of artists, the Boulder Potters Guild, about 14 years ago, and started selling my work. And then a couple years ago, became a full-time artist. So, wow, a long time in order to get to this point. It's not a simple thing that you just decide to become a full-time artist, but it's worked for me, and my marketing background has been very beneficial in that.
Julie, for anyone not familiar with your work already, can you tell us a little bit more about it?
My work tends to be a little different. Most people think of potters as mugs, bowls, plates, which is considered a functional potter. I'm kind of in between a functional and a sculptural. I have a couple lines of work that, to give you a couple examples. One, I'm known for my trees. So I make trees out of leaf shapes, and they sell in kind of the forest concept. So I make them in 5 different sizes, all different textures and glazes. And when you walk into the Old Gallery, you'll see them. Pretty much one of the first things that you'll see is a display of them I have there. And I also make a line of ceramic palettes that are used by painters in all different designs. And I make some other things like trays and planters and vases and lots of different things for the holidays. So I'm not your typical functional, but I do make some functional things, and I make some things that are sculptural. Almost all of my work is hand-built.
And Julie, do you have a website people can visit or any other shows coming up?
I have a website, julieneripottery.com. Last name is Neri. And I also have an Etsy shop, same name, Julie Neri Pottery. I sell at the Old Gallery. I also have work in the Aspen and Evergreen Gallery in Allenspark, which is a beautiful little gallery if anyone's never been there. And I am in a couple of shows in Longmont, the Boulder Potters Guild. The second weekend of November, it goes Thursday through Sunday at the Boulder County Fairgrounds in Longmont. And that will have 50 potters all with their work on display for those 4 days. So that's an amazing show. And then I hopefully will also be in Winter Market at the fairgrounds as well in December. And those are the two big shows I have coming up. Between that, my online shop, and the galleries, I stay very busy. So, and there's also the old gallery is going to have a holiday shop that starts November 4th, goes through December 23rd. They're only open on weekends during that time frame, so Saturdays and Sundays. But we'll have 20 plus of our artists who also have additional work that they create, smaller things, ornaments, varieties of gift items for the holidays. And so we'll have additional display during that time and have our work there. So my work will be there as it is all year long, but we'll also have additional work that I make for the holidays.
And if someone is interested in joining the old gallery, what's the best way to find out more about that process?
Pretty simple. All they need to do is contact us through the website. People can stop in and leave a note with the people at the front desk at the old gallery. We do our jury process and take in new members usually February, March of each year. Our season starts up in May, so that gives us time to interview and bring in some new artists. But at any time, we do accept interest, and occasionally when we have space, we will take some new artists in the fall. I don't believe we're planning to do it this fall, but if anyone is interested to just do a contact on the old gallery website, but also there's a section for artists that tells you how to apply and gives you the application form, that type of thing on the website.
And Julie, is there anything else you'd like to let people know about before we wrap up?
The holiday shop, for sure, that we want to get the word out that we're doing that. We've been doing it for several years, and a lot of the locals, we see a lot of locals coming through for that. It's a nice place to be able to go to do shopping. There's also a Halloween potluck coming up at the end of October that is worth checking out. And all the activities at the old gallery are listed on our website under the calendar. And they have incredible classes consistently. They do paint and sips. They have a community food bank. There's all kinds of things going on at the old gallery. So if anyone's not interested, we encourage them to check out their website and see all the amazing things offered by that community place.
Thank you, Julie. We have also included links to your website and Etsy shop in our show notes. And we are thrilled everyone had a great weekend during the tour.
And I dreamed I was an ocean in my body. It was vast and deep. Yeah, I dreamed I was an ocean and my body was vast and deep. And then I dreamed you were the grasslands and your vastness was familiar to me. With your rivers all rolling out to sea. La-da-da-dum, 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 my darling, oh, la-da-da.
Now we go to correspondent Jamie Lammers, who will be delivering this week's Music Mentions.
And now for this week's Music Mentions. Head to the Gold Hill Inn, located at 401 Main Street in Gold Hill, on Friday, October 6th at 8 p.m. to see David Lawrence and the Spoonful performing live, and on Sunday, October 8th at 7 p.m. to see Jackson Maloney performing live. Head to Howland Brewing, located at 51A Main Street in Rollinsville, on Friday, October 6th at 8:30 p.m. to see Godlaser performing live, and on Saturday, October 7th at 6 p.m. to see Moonstone Quill performing live. Head to the Jamestown Mercantile, located at 108 Main Street in Jamestown, on Wednesday, October 4th at 5 p.m. for an open mic night, on Thursday, October 5th at 7 p.m. to see Mercy Club performing live, and on Friday, October 6th at 7 p.m. to see Connor St. Augustine performing live. Most Sundays at 4 p.m., the Millside Inn hosts an open jam. Be sure to head there at 44365 Highway 72 in Ward to check them out for yourself. Head to the Caribou Room, located at 55 Indian Peaks Drive in Netherland, on Friday, October 6th to see Peak to Peak with Crick Water. Doors open at 7 p.m. and the show starts at 8 p.m. And finally, head to the Very Nice Brewing Company, located at 20 East Lakeview Drive, number 112 in Netherland, on Friday, October 6th at 6 p.m. to see Jesse Maclaine performing live, and on Saturday, October 7th at 5 p.m. to see Mountain Reverb performing live. Did we miss you or your performance? Want to submit your music listing in the Peak to Peak area? Do you have updates to your business or to your performances? Please call 303-810-5409 or email info@themountaineer.com to be included in the next print edition or the next podcast of The Mountain Ear.
Thank you, Jamie. Now let's drop in with special correspondent, Maryann Rosen, who shares the paranormal kickoff of our 5-part supernatural story series for the month of October, leading up to Samhain and Halloween.
With October upon us, and as the darker, longer nights approach leading up to Samhain, it is always a good time to think about the supernatural parts of life. Eerie, spooky, mysterious things that we cannot explain. Ghostly apparitions, spirits of those long dead, specters unable to leave their mortal grounds even after their earthly bodies have fled, and visitants who simply want to frighten people away so as to leave them in peace. Some believe that Colorado may be the most haunted state in America. With that in mind, let's explore some of the most unearthly and eerily spectral places in the state. But beware if you visit them, be prepared for spine-chilling happenings. This week in our month-long spooky series, we will learn about who or what is haunting a couple of towns, a road, railroad tunnels, and a park. We will travel first to the town of St. Elmo. Founded around 1800, the town was active thanks to its rich veins of gold and silver. Among the many prospectors who arrived to find riches were a brother and sister pair. As winter approached, they found shelter from the bad weather, even as everyone else left. Things did not work out for this pair. Long dead, you still may find yourself strolling with this brother and sister whose ghostly figures still roam St. Elmo, as they still refuse to leave, even after death. Heading to another town, you may find yourself in Georgetown. If so, be prepared to be surrounded by phantoms, mostly from the 1800s, who appear to be trapped on this town's streets where they once lived. These specters seem to come and go from and into thin air, and there are so many and appear so frequently that ghost tours are held. If you have not had your fill of the uncanny, then continue on to the Ashcroft Ghost Town, once a part of the huge gold and silver boom. Many miners, instead of finding riches, unfortunately lost their lives in mining accidents. Although the View Hotel is considered to be extremely haunted, it is the streets after dark, which become hangouts for lost souls who are drawn to the roads that they once traveled. Is your skin tingling yet? If not, then there is more. Speaking of roads, Phantom Canyon Road is a scenic route which detours from the Gold Belt Tour by way of retracing the steps of the Florence and Cripple Creek Railroad. The drive is on a narrow, mostly unpaved road 4,000 feet above sea level, which winds its way through very eerie tunnels and abandoned mining towns. Along this road roam ethereal specters who appear out of nowhere. Another phantom who may show up is a uniformed inmate from the 1890s who had been executed. Drive safely, as you may be startled and frightened by the sudden appearances of ghostly figures. Tunnels also play a part in another haunted place in Colorado, the Gold Camp Rail Tunnels. These tunnels took the lives of several workers during their construction. 3 of the 9 tunnels collapsed, and an overwhelmingly sad and horrific accident happened involving children on a bus in a tunnel that had been turned into an auto passage and collapsed. In the remaining auto passage tunnels, visitors report hearing the echoes of those children laughing. The unsettling presence of dark figures lurking gives one goosebumps and makes the hair on your body stand on end. And beware of stopping in the tunnels, as there have been incidences of imprints of dusty hands mysteriously materializing on vehicles. An uncanny happening, for sure. Some of the most hair-raising and frightening happenings have and still occur at a park in Denver. Cheeseman Park is a beautiful green oasis in the city where people picnic, play, read, and play and listen to music. It was not always that way. At one time, the area was Denver's first cemetery. When the city decided to repurpose the land for park use, a lot of the deceased buried there were moved by their families and loved ones. However, many remains went unclaimed. Some of those bodies were dug up and in a most macabre event, they were dismembered in order to put them into smaller caskets and move them. Many other remains were left behind. These disturbances did not go unnoticed. Weird things began happening once all of these exhumations began. In 1893, gravediggers reported being weighted down by unseen presences that settled upon their shoulders. And in terrifying fashion, residents in homes encircling the park told stories of bewildered apparitions knocking on their doors and windows. Mournful cries are often heard emanating from the area as the park still remains a host to these unsettled spirits. There are also accounts of children playing at night, but vanishing without a trace if approached, and of a woman who sings but then disappears as abruptly as she comes. Oftentimes, visitors who go to the park for relaxation tell of being overwhelmed with feelings of sorrow. All frightening experiences for sure. We have just begun to scratch the surface of spooky encounters in Colorado. Next week, we will continue with more chilling tales from the state before we continue this month to go underground to spooky happenings in the mines. After which, we will zero in on alarming anecdotes from closer to home along the peak to peak, all leading up to Samhain and Halloween. Stay tuned. This is just the beginning of our spooky October journey.
Storytellers, fable makers, and ghost town enthusiasts. We ask you now to share your stories of encounters with the supernatural kind. Do you have a spooky story you want to share? Have you encountered ghosts of gold diggers past, a Bigfoot, or maybe a Tommyknocker? Well, we want to hear all about it. Go to www.themountaineer.com and follow the prompt, October Listener Tales, and share your supernatural story today.
And that was a piece of Mad World performed by Jesse Maclaine and The Scotch. Now listen in as Jamie Lammers interviews Maclaine, the multi-talented indie pop rock singer-songwriter, as she talks about her style and love of the craft, as well as her upcoming show at the Very Nice Brewing on Sunday, October 6th.
Hello, my name is Jamie Lammers, and I am back with a brand new musical guest. Do you mind introducing yourself real quick?
My name is Jesse Maclaine. I'm a singer, songwriter, pianist, composer, music teacher, and lots of other things too.
And I hear you're playing at the Very Nice Brewing Company very soon.
Absolutely. We love Very Nice. It's really the nicest place. And the beer is amazing.
When are you performing there?
Friday, October 6th, and it's the first Friday Friday as well. So there'll be a bunch of other art and events going on around town, and just a really good night for people to come out and kind of walk around and enjoy all the beautiful things that Nederland has to offer.
So where did your musical journey start, and how did you get to where you are now?
Technically, it all began with my mom putting headphones on her pregnant belly to let little tiny me listen to the Beatles and Elvis and her favorite music. She probably got her love of music because my grandmother was a jazz singer and songwriter as well. Her name was Mickey Cox. So then I just started singing about the same time as I could speak, and I really loved music, and I actually thought I was going to be a musical theater person because I was really into dancing and acting. You couldn't dissuade me. All the grown-ups in my life, they asked the kids, right, what are you going to do when you grow up? And I'd be like, I'm a performer, I'm an entertainer. That's my little kid voice. I'm a singer, I'm a pop star, whatever, I'm going to be Madonna, whatever the thing of the day was, I would say. And you could just see their faces crease with frowny, adulty worry. And inevitably they would be like, you can't do that. You'll never make money doing that. It's unstoppable. They would make suggestions to me, appropriate female jobs, like, how about a nurse or becoming a school teacher? And I was like, ugh, that sounds so unappealing. Both my parents were school teachers too, so I got to see the inside view of being a school teacher and some of the stress and drama that's involved with that, as well as the early mornings, which I'm not an early morning person. So I just was doing music. I was taking piano lessons starting in the 7th grade, and I was like, I don't need these, I'm a singer. And that was kind of my mantra. And my mom would be like, well, just do one more year. And I'd be like, okay, as teenagers do. And I didn't really write music. I think I tried to write one song, but I didn't have any guidance with that, and it just seemed impossible. And so I convinced myself that you're either born like Mozart and you can write songs, or you're not. And as an adult and music teacher, I have reversed that philosophy, and I believe that everyone can write songs, and it's really sort of in our human nature to write songs and to be creative. So that's something I really encourage my students to dabble in their own songwriting, even if they don't have composer aspirations or anything. I just feel like being creative is an essential part of the human experience. So I was just in musicals all through school and choir and shows, and anytime I could be creative, I would be creative. And then somewhere around my senior year, I had some friends who had acoustic guitars, and I just started singing songs with them, like not songs anyone knew, like they would just be strumming their guitar, and I'd start singing some stuff. And that's kind of how I learned that I could, in fact, write songs. And then I went to college at Florida State for 3 years and had some bands. I was in a couple of different bands, and one of the bands got some interest from Warner Brothers, and we did a whole bunch of trips to Nashville and recording in the historic Studio B, which is where like Elvis and Dolly Parton and a bunch of other famous people cut a bunch of hit songs. And that was really cool. Got to see inside the music industry and what that life would be like. But at the same time, I had discovered jazz. So even though my grandmother was a jazz singer, it wasn't really talked about. There wasn't a lot of money attached to it, especially being a single mom of 3 kids back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. So I don't know, there was just sort of a weird thing I had to kind of get through to keep doing the thing I felt was my life's passion. It was a weird conundrum of having all these adults being like, no, don't do that. But my inner voice being like, this is the thing you do. And so I just kept doing it because you got to listen to your inner voice. And I was pretty good at it, and I had fun with it. And then as I was falling in love with jazz, and Warner Brothers was getting more serious, and I kept meeting more and more music industry executives who were just not my cup of tea, is perhaps the nicest way to say it. And then they told us our big plan was to move us to Nashville, where we would play the same 10 songs for 8 hours a day for months on end. And I was like, oh, I'm into jazz now? So that's the opposite of what I want to do. So much to my bandmates' chagrin, I broke up the band. And then to my parents' disappointment, I dropped out of Florida State. And actually, I convinced my mom that it was the right thing to do. And she believed me, and she believed in me, which was obviously a very big deal. So she supported my move to New Orleans. Dad wasn't a fan, but he knew better than to argue with the boss. They kind of went along with it. And at 20 years old, I moved myself to New Orleans, and I didn't know a single person, and I moved to New Orleans all by myself. And I had one of my friends from the band moved in like 3 or 4 months later, but it was a really interesting way to get to know the city. And right around that time, I had stayed friends with some of the bandmates from Warner Brothers, and I got to go up with the band I assembled in New Orleans to go make my first record in Studio B, and that was epic. That band is called Oral Elixir, oral for your ears, elixir because music makes everything better, and elixir is also a nod to Frank Zappa. He's why I started writing songs, seriously writing songs. Like I was writing songs for fun and they were kind of whatever, but I didn't think this is going to be a lifetime commitment. And then I got turned on to Frank Zappa's music and the diversity of songs he's written. That was probably 92, 93, right around the time that he died. But just his catalog of music was so extensive and there was so much variety and it was so much more than just your basic I'm in love with a guy, I hope he loves me back kind of song, or this guy has broken my heart, what'll I do kind of song. You know, Zappa's out there writing songs about this dangerous kitchen and instrumentals, Yellow Shark, and just all kind of interesting stuff and funny stuff. And I love the idea of humor in music. So I guess Zappa was really my main songwriting starter influence. So coming from the 80s, I was very much submerged in the pop music of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. 50s too, because I was a choir kid, so like to harmonize with all my friends. So a whole bunch of pop music. My dad was really into classical music, and I like classical music too, so I listened to a lot of that. And then I got into jazz, and right around the same time as I discovered Frank Zappa, my friend Nick loaned me her Joni Mitchell Blue tape, and I've had to sing every song on that. As soon as I heard it, I was like, oh, I'm in love with this. I'm singing every song. And it was so funny because at the same time, I was also obsessed with Pearl Jam. So my main rotation was Tin and Blue, and I had to sing every song on both albums. I'm pretty sure I broke both of those cassettes from playing them too many times. Then a few years later, I was dating this guy who's now my husband, and he gave me some Tori Amos music, and that was kind of the final piece of the puzzle for me because I started playing piano again. First, I wasn't really playing piano. I didn't play piano with that band in college that Warner Brothers was interested in. And then we had a gig where no one showed up but me and the drummer, and we were just like, I guess we have to cancel. And that was the moment where the light clicked for me. And I was like, I'm going to start learning my piano again so that I don't ever have to cancel a gig because I'm the only one there. If I'm there, I can play the gig. Maybe it's not what they were expecting, but, and that's kind of turned into like this whole other world and almost identity for who I am and what I do and the kind of songs I like to write.
And what do you love so much about the creative process as a whole?
That's a great question. The creative process is magical and also very attainable for everyone. I feel like we're just born to be creative and everyone has their little nuance and their preferences, and whether you're gardening or making sandwiches or making clothes or painting pictures or writing songs, we all have that creative spark. And so really the birth of a song is possibly the most exciting part, especially when it all kind of falls into place. Like you have the idea for the song, like what's my topic? Why am I writing a song today? And then the music or the words just sort of fall into your lap because you're thinking about it and you're thinking about, I want to write a song, or maybe I'm not even thinking I want to write a song. Maybe I'm just like, I'm going to play because I'm upset, and then a song is born. There's so many ways to write a song, whether it's intentional or whether you're having some emotions and you're being cathartic with your emotions and doing it through music and improvisation, and then it just happens. Or maybe someone has asked you for a song, or maybe your friend is getting married and you're like, I'm going to dedicate them a song. There's so many ways it can happen, but it's still kind of magical because you can't really force a good song to happen. That's kind of the odd nuance of it. You can write a mathematical song and make it a perfectly acceptable song, a perfectly nice song, maybe even a ridiculously popular and profitable song. But there's also lots of times where that just doesn't work, and you kind of like on the whims of fate of, okay, I've written this thing. Is anyone going to like it? Am I going to like it? Maybe tomorrow I wake up and try to sing it and I'm like, oh, what was I thinking? It's just a really interesting process that never gets boring. And I think that's kind of what draws me to music again and again and again, is that even when it's frustrating, it's still really fun and there's an element of mystery, but there's also some kind of math and logic involved in there too, and persistence is key, like for so many things. But I've tried other jobs. I've tried more reasonable, socially acceptable jobs, everything from working in an office to being a nanny to elder care to restaurant work, being a barista, gardening. I've done so many things, and I always just come back to music because there's nothing quite as fun, there's nothing quite as challenging, and there's nothing quite as magical. So I don't know, and that's one of the really fun things about teaching music to people, is kind of sharing that magic as creators, but is also a lot of practicality behind it too. So we're kind of like little scientists at the same time as we're little magicians. Sometimes when you're writing, it just flows, and then other times you're writing and you're like, running in wet sand.
Thank you so much, Jesse, for coming on board and joining us for the podcast. If you want to see Jesse Maclaine performing live at Very Nice Brewing Company, located at 20 East Lakeview Drive, number 112 in Netherland, be sure to check her out on Friday, October 6th, 2023 at 6 p.m.
I'm going around this world, baby, baby, I'm going around this world, baby, I'm going around this world, I'm going to be going around this world, baby. I'm going to Carolina, baby, I'm going to Carolina, baby, I'm going to Carolina and Maryland, going to Carolina, baby.
That concludes this week's episode of the Mountain Air Podcast, where everybody's listening.
Visit our website at www.themountaineer.com to read more information about today's guests. Pick up a copy of this week's print edition of The Mountaineer at newsstands all across the Peak to Peak. I'm Dango Rose.
And I'm Cynthia Davis. Thank you for listening.
You name it, we've got it.
You know, up here in the mountains, things are weird.
And that's it for our show. Subscribe online to get more access to more news, weekly updates to our community calendar, and a link to our YouTube channel by visiting themountaineer.com. Be sure to use the coupon code PODCAST when subscribing for a 10% discount, only available to our listeners. If you are in the local peak-to-peak area, be sure to pick up a print edition of The Mountaineer at a local business. I'm Dango Rose. Thank you for listening.